Good morning. It's Monday, March 16th, 2020, and today I would like to remember my language student, Christophe. I first met Christophe, it was in the early 2000s. I don't remember exactly the year, but it wasn't long after the new millennium arrived, I think. I had finished teaching overseas. I think I had been in Turkey. I had been there several times. And I was back in the US in Chicago, and I needed to work while I was, waiting for my next overseas teaching assignment. So I got a job teaching English at the Kaplan School in Chicago. And I enjoyed the classes very much, and I think that my supervisor there, his name was John, Irish American, and probably a big Cubs fan. I don't remember. Anyway, so Christoph was not in my regular classes, I don't think, but I was assigned to work with him because he was a 19-year-old university student. I think he had just finished high school in France, and he was applying to university. It might have been in Georgia, the Embry-Riddle Aviation School, because Christoph wanted to become an airline pilot like his grandfathers. So this was right around the time the TEFL exam was transitioning, or TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. It was transitioning from paper-based administration to totally computer-based. It was summertime. I think it was July or August. Anyway, it was summer in Chicago, and I worked every day with Christoph for several hours a day on academic English. And of course, it was summer, so he was, a teenager, first time in Chicago, and it's beautiful in the summer. So he was a bit distracted by Lake Michigan and all the parks and activities and things and all. But he did work very hard, and the scoring for the new TOEFL, I think the minimum score required for entrance into North American universities was, and I think still is, 80. Well, as I recall, Christoph took his TOEFL exam, and I think he scored 79. But he got in to whatever university he had applied to, and I think he had to take some remedial English courses along with his aviation studies. Well, he became a pilot, and I stayed in touch with Christoph. I remember once when I was finishing a teaching gig in Ireland, I took a bus from Waterford, Ireland, across the Irish Sea on a ferry boat, across the UK, under the Channel, from London to Calais. And then the bus went through France, and I remember stopping in France, spent a weekend or so there, and it was during the summertime, and I stayed in a wonderful neighborhood called Chateau d'Eau. It was full of Algerian and Tunisian French citizens. It was marvelous, the food and the culture, and it was great. And Christoph was there. I connected with him, and he was my mini tour guide for, and I think the neighborhood was Saint Denis. I met him in, and we walked around beautiful Paris. Paris has always been one of my favorite cities. And there were always, Americans always held two stereotypes about France and Parisians in particular. One, that the French don't bathe very well. You know, their hygiene is poor. Well, I rode the Paris metro in the summertime, and everyone I was riding next to smelled fresh as a daisy. That wasn't always true on the trams in Warsaw, let me tell you. The other widely held stereotype, particularly about Parisians, is that there's dog shit everywhere in Paris, that, you know, and they don't pick up after the dogs. Well, I walked all over Paris and never once stepped in dog poop, so stereotypes are not always true. I remember Christophe showed me the Sorbonne uh, University where Jackie Kennedy studied, and oh, we just had a lovely time at some cafe, I recall, and of course, it was another opportunity for Christophe to continue practicing his English, which, you know, he did very well because he was a world traveler everywhere he went. And then when I lived in Madrid, he and his girlfriend, Kathy, were living not far from me. So we reconnected there just a few years ago, and I did some classes for both Christophe and Kathy, and Christophe would come to my home or I would go to their flat, and he would cook, and he's a wonderful cook. Remember, he made a guacamole salad and French crepes one day that were both sweet and savory. I mean, that was pretty fabulous, you know. And now I think he and Kathy are living in Dubai. So as soon as this coronavirus bullshit blows over, I plan to show up at their doorstep. Hi, show me Dubai. Anyway, sois fabuleux.